My name is Chet, and one day I was sitting at my desk when one of my paralegals told me another attorney wanted a meeting. Because I deal with a lot of opposing attorneys wanting to discuss cases, I agreed to see Sammy that afternoon. When Sammy and I sat down to talk, he started to get emotional and told me he suspected his wife, Angelique, was cheating. I suggested allowing me to put one of my PIs on the case. I got a photo of his wife and later got a photo and tag number of her car. I contacted the PI and gave them the information after telling Sammy that this may take a while and just be cool and not confront Angelique. About 2 weeks later, this PI contacted me with photos and video of Angelique with another man. There was video of her giving oral to this man in his car in a dark area of a park. I said okay, took the information, and because I was very busy with court, was not able to look at the information, I put it in one of my briefcases and took it home that night. After dinner, I sit down in my office at home and started watching the video. As an attorney, having a case hit you in your personal life is rare, but it does happen from time to time. This one smacked me so hard I almost stopped breathing. The man Angelique was cheating with was my wife's brother's son-in-law. Time stood still, and my wife started asking me what was wrong. I had to get up and throw up. I returned to my office to find Patty was watching the video, and she got violently angry. Both of us were sick for days afterward. I was the family attorney, so I felt I was duty-bound to inform Maggie about this sad situation as well as offer to show her the video. I sat with my wife, Patty, myself, Chet, Maggie, and her parents, Stephen and Annika, and we watched the video. It broke my heart watching Maggie's lower lip start quaking, but I knew both her dad and I had to be strong. I also asked Maggie and her folks to not confront Louis until I had a chance to let Sammy know. Sammy was away on business at that time. They did, and when Sammy got home, I gave the information to him. I found myself in a situation where I was the attorney of record for both Sammy and Maggie as they started their respective divorces. Sammy and Angelique had no children, but Louis and Maggie had 2 small daughters. Louis was also making at that time 7 figures a year income. Because of state bar ethics, I was compelled to notify Sammy of my family connection. Sammy wanted to meet with Maggie and her family. They devised a plan for a mutual confrontation later that week. At this point, neither Louis nor Angelique had any idea. Maggie took her girls and spent several days with her mother doing some girl things and got out of the house. Then once they did meet, I called my PI and asked this person what was the location of the hotel they generally met. The PI told me they used mostly 3 hotels, so as the plan come together, they decided to attempt this confrontation that coming Thursday night. By this time, there were PIs on both Louis and Angelique. Then Louis called Maggie and told her he was going to have to go into the city about an hour away for business and would be staying overnight. Maggie had taken some time off because honestly, a physician can't do patient care with this crap going on. Sammy was also getting his situation going, and about the same time Angelique called him and said she was going to be with her folks that night. By this point, Maggie had driven back to the residence and with a lot of help moved all the girls and her things out boxed up and in a small rental van. Then she sits in Louis' home office and wrote a brief note. Louis, I hope Angelique was worth it. I will always love you. Then she took off her ring and put my business card on the desk with his copies of the divorce papers and her door key, then started weeping as she walked out. Then we all went to a local diner and ate. Well, all but Maggie, as she was not eating. I got a page about 5 p.m. from the PI and called them and was told Louis had checked into a local 4-star hotel and that Angelique had just entered the building. The trap was set. I walked inside the hotel and asked for someone in management and was introduced to the actual managing partner. I informed this person what was happening, and he said we were allowed in the lobby only if we did not get loud and disturb the other guests. He would not give us their actual room number. When I gave him Louis' name, he did say Louis was staying there that night. I had only one request. I asked the man once everybody got inside to call the room. Then, depending on who answered, to tell them that either Sammy or Maggie was in the lobby wanting to see them. He made the call, took a few rings, but Angelique was the one that answered. The man just said, Sammy is here at the desk wanting to come up. Can I give him your room number? I guess she said no because the man put the receiver back in the cradle and smiled. Message delivered. It took about 10 minutes by the elevator dinged, and Louis walked out. The first person he saw was Maggie's father. Sammy, Maggie, myself, and her father was looking at him. The only way I can describe that look on Louis' face was he had just seen his obituary in the paper. Maggie was quiet, Louis walked toward her. But Stephen and I cut him off and I gave him the best advice I could give. Go home. He left. I guess it was close to 20 minutes later before Angelique came down. Once she did, you could tell she was a mess. Sammy was quiet. He just fingered Angelique over to where he was, and they both sat down. Sammy took her purse and got her checkbook in plastic. Then as he noticed over $500 in her wallet, gave her a dirty look. Then he put her copy of the divorce papers in the purse and walked out. Stephen and I were the last ones to leave that night. This has a sad ending. Maggie would not take anything from the divorce. By that time, I was in the hole for almost $4,000 for PIs. Maggie walked away giving Louis everything except for $100,000 she took from their joint accounts and used this to pay me. I was furious, but she was determined to never have to deal with Louis again. She did not even go after Louis for the house. Patty told me I was not to accept Maggie's money because she was family. Sammy got his divorce. Angelique tried to get Sammy back. She even tried calling me. I told her to stop. Then a while later, the PI who helped me called and told me an Atlanta police detective told him that Angelique had died overnight at the same hotel where her affair ended. Angelique checked into that same hotel where she ended her life. One of the housekeepers found her body the next morning. I called Sammy that morning and told him what I had learned. He was upset. I told him I was available anytime he wanted to talk. This case drained me, and I got out of law and retired a few months ago. I still see Maggie and the girls from time to time. My father-in-law passed away this past summer. This is also Maggie's grandfather. Maggie dropped the girls off at her parents' home, and Louis came by to see them. This continued for several years. Then Louis left the area. About 10 years after her divorce, Maggie met and married another physician who had lost his wife to cancer several years before. Maggie and Brian grew old together, watching their grandkids grow up.